What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about the Canon R5. I've owned this camera for a little over a year now, and I thought it'd be a good time to talk about what I love about it and why it's been on my camera bag for so long. So I think we can get caught up in all the specs of the new cameras coming out. Every year, new brands coming out with cameras with new specs, higher megapixels, and all that. And I think that's really fun and exciting, but I want to talk about the cameras that we use every day for our professional jobs, the ones that are being put to the test and stay with us throughout the years. So I've owned the R5 for a little over a year now, and I've taken it all over the place on a wide variety of different jobs, and I've been super pleased with the quality of the photos coming out of this thing. The R5 for me is really just a workhorse of a camera. It doesn't skip a beat, and I think that's really undervalued nowadays. And this goes for Canon cameras in general, in my opinion. They just work, they're tried and true, and I think that says a lot for the brand. Now this goes without saying, but the image quality on this camera is fantastic. The 45 megapixels, the colors, all that has been super nice to have. Especially for my commercial work, the 45 megapixels has been great. A few months ago I did a magazine shoot, and in post I was able to take those horizontals, crop them into vertical, and it was super awesome to not have that resolution loss. I think in general with all Canon cameras, their new sensors have just been really amazing to use and a step up from their old ones for sure. I owned the 1DX Mark II for a long time and loved that camera, but comparing those photos to my new R5 is really just night and day, and I'm glad that Canon's finally moving in the right direction. I feel like with their sensors, I feel that in the past they've really been lacking on dynamic range and specs and things like that, but I think they're doing a great job now. So why did I choose something like an R5 over a Fuji or a Sony, for instance? And I think one, I already owned and was on the system, but two, one of the big things for me is durability. I treat my cameras like trash, and like the first day I owned the R5, I did a shoot with some cars in the pouring rain, and it didn't skip a beat, and I think that's super important for me. The other cameras that I've used, they don't feel as durable, they don't feel as strong, and maybe that's just me, but I want to be able to rely and trust on my camera no matter the situation. When it comes to working with the camera in a professional setting, I think it's super important for it to not be buggy, not to have any issues, it have good autofocus, and just it work. All cameras should work, but I think that I've used other cameras in the past and I've had some issues with maybe the card not reading or a button not working, and when you're taking photos, the client's there, you don't want that to happen, and I've always had good luck with my Canon cameras. Another thing I do is tether in the studio, and I haven't really had much experience with other cameras in tethering, but I know it's super simple with the R5. Just plug it into USB-C into my laptop and tether straight into Lightroom, and it's been a great experience so far. Another thing that I use a lot is the lens mount and how versatile it is. I love it. It's super big, so you can fit a wide variety of different lenses on there. You have the amazing RF line, which is super sharp, great autofocus, fantastic. I don't personally own any RF glass, but I do use the EF 2470 and EF glass a lot of the time, and that works great with the adapter. Autofocus is fantastic. Another thing I do though is I have the vintage like FD Canon lenses from my film cameras, and they have a fantastic look, super bloomy, flary, and I'm able to use those on this camera with the Metabones adapter, and I've actually used it on a few shoots and the photos turned out fantastic with it. So I know I talk a lot about the durability and just this camera working, and it's just a workhorse of a camera, but I also think that your camera needs to be comfortable and not burdensome throughout the day. You're carrying this maybe on a wedding for 8-10 hours a day or on set, and I don't want to be uncomfortable in my hand. I want it to fill my hand and be just all the buttons to where they are and they need to be, and I think that the Canon cameras are really good. I've held the Sonys, and they've gotten better from their previous bodies, but they don't, my pinky's always falling off. It's like it doesn't feel like it's meant for the human hand, and if something I'm holding all day, I want it to be comfortable, and it feels solid in my hand, it's not gonna fall out, and I think that's maybe dumb, but I think it's important, and that's actually a thing I love about this camera, so I don't know. I think overall, I'm seeing a lot of professional photographers in the wedding and commercial space switch over to the R5 now. It's almost 3 years old, but I think it's still honestly like top tier, if you will, for your professional workhorse of a camera nowadays. I think that, and then maybe if you're in a slower setting, the GFX 100S, I believe a lot of people are using. But again, I'm shooting a lot of fast-paced things, sports, automotive things. and I need that fast-paced 12 frames a second mechanical, 20 frames a second electronic, which I didn't actually think I was going to use very often. The 20 frames in this is a very nice thing when you're shooting sports. I was shooting a track meet a few weeks ago, and I was able to use that 20 frames a second and just get the perfect frame, which is awesome. So another thing I love about this camera is the dual card slots. I don't actually use dual card slots very often myself, but the one thing I like the most is the CF Express Type B cards. They're super fast, they're super durable. I think I haven't had an issue with SD cards breaking on me, but I've had these little pins right here kind of get loose, and I just don't want to have to break a card. These CF Express Type B cards and even CFast cards, the older ones, they're in like its own little case. They're durable. I think these Angel Bird ones are like splash and dust proof, which is fantastic. But yeah, I've never had an issue with these cards not working, and I think that's super important. I don't like having card malfunctions on set, because then that's another level of complications that you're gonna have to deal with. And so I'm a big fan of all the new cameras today coming out with these cards over SD cards. I know they're more expensive, but I think that they're definitely worth it, and that this will outlast any of these. So I know I talk a lot about this camera in my professional work, but what does it look like in my personal life? I'm not really using this camera for street photography or just taking it out to document my life. I'd much rather use a Leica or a Fuji camera, something small with the prime. I think I wouldn't consider this big. You know, after using the 1DX, this is not big to me. But I think once you add on a zoom in the front, or even just the RF primes are pretty big in size, it just gets cumbersome carrying it around, and I'd much rather have something like a Leica or a Fuji that's super small with little prime, super fun to shoot. The only thing I really take this out for my personal life is landscapes. I think it suits out very well. Full frame, 45 megapixels. It's been super nice for that though. So real quick, I want to touch on the video side of this camera. I don't very often use it for video, mainly, for travel videos here and there, or maybe just YouTube stuff. And I think it's a decent for that. It's got a strong 42210-bit 4K log image, a decent amount of dynamic range, and even the 8K RAW on this camera is really solid. It can overheat on you, but I've had really no issue with overheating on this camera. And overall, I think it's a pretty good hybrid camera for video and photo. But I would definitely lean on the photo side for this camera. If I'm just, having a camera for video, it's not going to be this. Maybe like my Red, or, even a Sony camera for that. Using the R5 for the last year, it's proven to be a fantastic workhorse of a camera for photo jobs, and I don't have any plan on selling it anytime soon. I actually am more of a filmmaker than a photographer, but I do have photo jobs here and there, and I think it's fantastic for the photographer. If you are looking for this camera to buy it, it's almost 3 years old at this point, I think, but I don't think that really matters. It matters if the camera works for you, and I think that this will work for a lot of professional photographers for years to come, and it won't be leaving my camera bag anytime soon. What's my outro? I haven't done YouTube in so long. I forgot my outro, guys. I love you. Live your life. Have fun. We'll see you next time. I think that's right. Anyway, see you guys.